Hey everyone, so this is going to be I hope to be short tutorial for starching fabric. It's not a complicated process at all, but there were some things that I learned along the way that I think would be helpful um, to anybody else who wanted to do it. The reason why I starched fabric was because I wanted to make flowers out of all the scrap fabric that I had. You know, pieces that were too small to really work with as far as other crafting projects went. These flowers were actually made from paper towel because I used paper towels to sop up excess glimmer mist or alcohol ink. These didn't turn out so well. They're just the petals were just too thick. Anyways. So, yeah, I just made flowers with them. So I thought I'll do a tutorial on this rose at a later time using the stiffened fabric. There's other tutorials out there, but I figured I'd do one just to do one. Anyways, so I guess I'll get started. So the things that you will need for, you know, to starch fabric is obviously your fabric. What I have found out is that cotton fabrics, you know, something like this is a lot easier to work with, you know, when you're making the flowers. And the other thing I learned is when you're running your stiffened fabric through the dye machine, this will hold on to the starch better than you know, synthetic fabrics, you know, like polyester, you know, something like that. You know, the synthetic fabrics, they just, you know, they just lost a great deal of their stiffness when the pressure was put on the fabric in order to run it through the dye machine. So, you know, kind of like how paper, you know, if you crumple it up, it gets soft because you're breaking up the fibers. So that's kind of what happens to synthetic fabrics when you run it through the dye machine after you've stiffened it. You know, it'll happen the same with the cotton fabrics too, just not as bad. So I'd recommend using cotton fabrics when you're stiffening fabrics for flower making. But, you know, if you have synthetic fabrics that you really want to use up, you can still make flowers with them. So I wouldn't hold back just because, you know, synthetic fabrics aren't as good as cotton. But cotton is better when doing this. You're going to need some wax paper. The way I do it is I use a bag, and then what I'm using is Aleene's fabric stiffener and draping liquid. This is a synthetic starch. I'll try and do a Google search while this video is uploading, see if I can find some, you know, homemade starching recipes for you in case you don't have this on hand. It's not really an inexpensive product. So what I do is I just put the fabric in the bag. Some people like to brush the draping liquid on. I'm not, I don't know. I just like throwing things in bags. This is just my preferred method. Hopefully I can get the bottle open. Oh, come on. Sorry for the banging. Here we go. Okay. Only got a little bit left in this bottle. So, what I have left is jellified a little bit. I'm gonna have to get some water real quick to mix in with the starch. Normally you wouldn't have to, but this is really old. I didn't even buy this draping liquid. I got it off a Craigslist purchase. I'm gonna get some water to loosen up my starch a little bit. But normally with the Aleene's, you don't have to do this. It should come out of the bottle kind of like Elmer's glue. Not all thick like this. So then what I do is I just take it and I just smush it in. You want to get the fabric completely saturated with the draping liquid or whatever homemade starch product you so choose to use. Just want to make sure the fabric's super saturated. And I'm sure the bottle recommends gloves, but you know me, I'm a rebel. Not much of a glove user. So, okay, so once you've got the fabric saturated with your draping liquid, then you want to pull it out of the bag. Make sure it's covered. You really don't want to wring this out too much. What I've noticed with the Aleene's, obviously I haven't tried other products, other brands, you know, this will dry clear, so I wouldn't worry about all this white on top. The more starch you have on your fabric, the stiffer it's going to be, which is obviously better. So, if you can, find the the back side of your fabric, you know, the part that doesn't have the pattern on it. This has pattern on both sides, but one's darker. Tempting to find the darker side. I think this is the darker side. So you want to have the back side of the fabric or the wrong side of the fabric sitting on the wax paper. You don't want the printed side on the wax paper. Because what will happen is when the starch dries, it'll sink into the fabric, and whatever excess starch there is, it's going to settle on the bottom. So when you peel it off the wax paper, you're going to see that starch. But as long as it's on the bottom, it doesn't really matter. So you just want to make sure you have the printed side or the good side of your fabric facing upwards, so that when the starch seeps down and starts to dry, you won't see any shininess on the printed side. But, you know, yeah. So you don't need to worry about all this white starch on top. You won't see that. So, you just want to let this dry. If you put it out, if you do it outside in the sun, it dries extremely quick. if you didn't completely get the fabric saturated with the starch and you find that you have a couple soft spots in the fabric, and you need to restarch some spots, you can do that, no problem. But the thing is that you want to be sure, because most of the fabric is starched already and you just have a few soft spots that need to be starched again. What you want to do is you want to make sure you starch the underside of the fabric. You want to starch the wrong side of the fabric. Because it's already stiffened, any new starch you put through or put onto the fabric after it's been stiffened the first time, it won't be able to seep down to the bottom like it does when you initially starch the fabric. So yeah, if you need to restarch it, just flip it up so that you see the back and restarch the back of it. But you do not want to restarch the top or the print side because it won't seep down. You'll end up with shiny spots like this. See, this is the print side of the fabric. You can see the shininess on it. What happened is I didn't get it completely starched. So I went ahead and restarched it again by just brushing a layer of starch on the top. And so what resulted is I ended up with a whole lot of shininess on top of my fabric, and it didn't look very good. So if you end up with soft spots after the first starching, just flip it on its backside and starch the back. Okay, so that you can stiffen up those soft spots that you didn't get the first time, and then your printed side won't be affected by it because the starch can't seep through completely because it's already been starched one time. So, if you have any questions, just ask and I'd be happy to answer. I hope this tutorial was somewhat clear-ish. But yeah, you just want to let it dry and then you can go ahead and cut them out with your die machine. I did try and punch flowers out with the punch, and it just won't work. The fabric fiber is just too strong. So you're definitely going to need to use a die machine if you want to, you know, make fabrics with the stiffened fabric. So, any questions, just ask, and thanks for watching. Bye.